Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Passions Podcast, the podcast where we talk about the soap opera passions. Did you miss me? I missed you. I am LeTara, your regular host. This week, I am here by myself for a number of reasons. It's going to be like this for 2 weeks in a row. Some of you probably know that I've been having some little medical issues, and I've been having some trouble with my back. And unfortunately, the my back pain has not gotten very much better. I'm at a point where I can't sit for long periods of time. So I'm gonna have to do the podcast in pieces. Like I can't sit here for the full like 2.5 hours because my side starts to spasm up really bad. So that's why I'm doing it by myself because I don't want to subject anybody to like 5 hours of recording. But anyway, let's get started. This week I watched episodes 616 through 2. No, Lord Jesus. Going backwards. 616 through 620. And honestly, like there's some stuff going on, but we're doing a lot of lead up to the big reveal of like Theresa's pregnancy. And so I think they're spending a lot of time catching people up to speed who may have missed like the last month or two of episodes. So there's a lot of recap, but there's also a lot of like tension going on, and there are some things happening, but the pace is still really slow, which I mean is par for the course for Passions. Am I right? Anyway, before we get into the episode, I want to say a quick shout out to all of the patrons over on Patreon. Thank you so much to Munashe, Marcus, Brelyn, Lisa, Sid, Sarana, Randall, Hannah, Camellia, Samantha, Jeanette, Eric, Fantasia, Sean, S, Larissa, Maria, George Lopez Fitzgerald, Lisa, Jessica Jean, Laura, Karen, Uche, Justin, and our newest members, Paige and Casey. Thank you all so much for being patrons. I love you all very much, and I appreciate all you do to help me produce this show. So thank you. And if anyone out there who is not a patron already would like to become one, just go over to patreon.com/passionspodcast and sign up for whatever tier you find most agreeable. And now with that, it's time to move on with the show. A really big show. Okay, so we're gonna start with Shuis this week, y'all. Like, honestly, I really just want to get it out of the way. And the funniest line this week did come in this storyline, and it comes up pretty quickly. So, and it's going to be the episode title for sure. So we pick up where, for whatever reason, Luis, in the midst of this whole like Theresa Julian annulment debacle, in the midst of him getting there and he's like, ready to kill Julian, for some reason, he decides to go outside and call Liz on the island to check on Beth's boat. I don't know. But he calls and Diana picks up. Of course, I hated this. Y'all already know I hated this because I already knew that this was going to be some bullshit. But Diana picks up and it's like staticky. She can't hear what's going on the phone. Like she can't hear who's on the other end. And Luis can't hear who is talking on his end. And so she says, Liz, there's something wrong with your phone. And Liz comes and picks it up. Of course, immediately the connection is cleared up. But Luis talks to Liz, and Liz tells her, yeah, it's all set. Brian and Diana are going to sail the boat back to Harmony for you. And she says, maybe you guys could meet up for dinner. And she says that she just thought that Diana and Luis would like have some commonality, having both lost the loves of their lives. So she felt like it was a good thing that they might be able to support each other, which I kind of like, because she's being super pushy, and unless you put that caveat in there, it doesn't make any sense. Though, I mean, I guess the whole Titanic thing, she has let that go, though. We have completely forgotten about that. It hasn't been brought up again for a while. But yeah, she says maybe they can, support each other, having both lost the loves of their lives. Luis says, great, I'll take him to the Lobster Shack. Of course you will, because it's like the only nice restaurant in town. Besides the seascapes, and he can't afford the seascapes on his cop salary. He established that 600 episodes ago. So anyway, they make a date for the Lobster Shack for Brian, Diana, and Luis, without Brian or Diana's consent. But when Liz tells Diana about it, she's excited. She's like, "Oh, great! I really wanted to meet him. I would love to meet him." And then Diana has like this vision of herself in a gazebo with Luis, which is the gazebo that Martin built for Pilar, right? On the Crane property. But she has a vision of herself, a memory, really, not just a vision, a memory of herself with Luis kissing in the gazebo. And she asks, she's like, oh, she gets like that, oh, I just got a That's So Raven style vision. And she looks to Liz, she looks at Brian, and she goes, do they have gazebos in Harmony? I laughed so hard. I think we were watching this episode on a watch party, and I like had to stop because I was cackling so hard. It was so funny to me. Do they have gazebos in Harmony? I mean, probably. Most places have a gazebo in a park or something somewhere. It just was the funniest line to me this whole week. Do they have gazebos in Harmony? And Diana says, I saw myself in a gazebo. Liz and Brian both are like, I mean, maybe, sure. And so then Diana starts to say, oh, that voice on the phone, I feel like maybe it had something to do with my past. I really wish I could hear it again. And she says it sounded familiar. And Brian tries to talk her down, saying he always is just raining on her fucking parade. Every time she thinks she's having a memory, every time anything seems familiar to her, he's just like, you just want it to be familiar to you so you can get off the island. Like, I don't like him. No, he really is so nasty. He's like, well, you thought his voice was familiar. You couldn't even hear it. If there was so much static, you said you couldn't even hear his voice. How could it be familiar to you? She's like, I don't know. I just have a feeling. And he does that again. He does it again later. And he says, well, you have amnesia, Diana. You think everybody you meet has some secret to your past. I'm sick of him. You have amnesia. That's why you always think that anybody you meet is some secret person from your past. I mean, but they maybe could be. It's a possibility. You found her in the middle of the ocean, not far from this island. It's not too hard to believe that maybe someone in the area might pop up on the island one day and she actually does know them. That's not crazy. So anyway, Diana goes back over to try to take the phone from Liz, but Luis isn't on the phone. She pulls it before Liz can tell her nobody's on the phone, and she starts talking, but he's already hung up. Not a big deal. But Liz tells her, don't worry, you'll get to meet him when you go to Harmony. He wants to take you both to dinner. Then June, the assassin, y'all might not remember June because her and her assassin buddy were only in the episodes for like a few episodes. It was like maybe 4 episodes, but they're the ones that blew up the boat. And remember, he ended up going out and dying at sea because Julian sent him out there to like help look for Sheridan on the rescue boat or whatever. So the guy she was working with is dead. June, I guess, is just wandering the world, is still near Bermuda. And she shows up on this island, St. Lisa's Island, and she immediately sees Sheridan and knows exactly who she is. Sheridan sees her and he's like, oh my God, I know you. And June's like, nope, don't know me. I've never seen you before in my life, lady. I've never seen you before in my life. And Sheridan's like, no, I definitely know you. I don't know where I know you from. I don't know how I know you because I have amnesia. So she reveals to June that she has amnesia. And so June, because at first June is feeling really like nervous about the fact that she does see Sheridan. But when she realizes that Sheridan has amnesia, she relaxes a little bit, but not a lot, because her next move is to call Julian, which, if it were me, I would just take my money and disappear. Why are you fucking with Julian Crane? I guess maybe she thinks she could get some more money out of him, but she doesn't say that. She really wants to warn him that his sister is still alive. So she calls Julian while she's sitting at the bar. I mean, she's making a long distance phone call, which back in the day was a big deal, on a landline. She's making a long distance phone call from Liz's hotel, from like the public phone, because she doesn't even have a room. She's just sitting at the bar. And anyway, she calls Julian, and I guess I shouldn't be surprised. She is an assassin after all. She did try to murder Sheridan and Louise. So what does she care if she runs up Liz's phone bill? That's the least of her sins. But anyway, she calls Julian, and she beats around the bush while she's talking to him. This conversation was very frustrating and annoying. She's just like hemming and hawing. Oh, Mr. Crane, there's something you need to know. There's something I have to tell you. Girl, just say it. Say what it is. Say what you need to say. What you need to say. Say what you need to say, please. But she doesn't. Julian is rushing her off the phone. He's like, you just want more money. You're not going to see another dime from me. Do not call this number again. And, he says, I don't have time for this, because he's got his own shit going on. He's so deep in the shit right now, Julian is. He really is. It's like he gets out of one problem and he finds himself in three more, like, pits of shit. Because he is just always in trouble. So he's dealing with some shit in Harmony right now. So he's like, I don't have time for this. And he says, you won't get any more money from me, and you think you can extort me, you think you can blackmail me, but I will not be blackmailed by you anyway, because Rebecca is fully and completely blackmailing him. And then she finally manages to say to him, your sister isn't dead. Sheridan is alive. But by the time she has said that, Julian has hung up on her, so he did not hear that. So then Diana talks to June again, because she's like, I kind of overheard your conversation. Because again, June was having this conversation in the middle of the bar, like at the bar in public. And she wasn't talking that softly, but nobody heard her say, like, you paid me to murder your sister. Because I think that was one of the things she said in the conversation. Like, she was speaking in recap language. So she was saying things that were unnecessary to be said, unless it was just to catch the audience up, bring the audience up to speed about who she is. So in that way, in that capacity, it was extremely incriminating. But nobody heard the incriminating bits. All Sheridan could tell was that she was a little agitated on the phone. So Sheridan, or Diana, comes over to talk to June and tells her about this town called Harmony. She's like, yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I knew you before. I just felt like I really have seen you somewhere before. And like, is everything okay with your phone call? Seemed really tense. And June's like, oh, yeah, no, it's just something with my boss. Nothing to worry about. And then Diana starts to talk about Harmony. She's like, yeah, I have amnesia. I think because June actually kind of questions her about her identity. June's like, so you don't remember anything about your past? Like, nothing at all? And Sheridan's like, nope, I'm a blank slate, but there is this town called Harmony that we're going to go to, because the name of the town rings a bell for me. And so June, of course, knows, as everyone knows, that Harmony is the seat of power for the Cranes. So she's like, oh, I need to call Julian back and let him know that not only is Sheridan alive, she's coming to Harmony. She's coming to your town. She's headed right your way. But because Julian was so shitty to her on the phone and so nasty to her on the phone, she looked at the phone and she was like, on second thought, he deserves anything that comes his way. He deserves to be blindsided by this. I hope he gets the retribution that he deserves, and I hope she gets justice. Because even though June is a bad guy. Like, she's a villain because she did go along with this whole plot and plan. She did feel bad about it. She didn't like it. So, there's a little bit of a moral compass in there. And so she does not call Julian. Now, it's not enough of a moral compass, because if she really, really wanted to stir shit up, she could just tell Sheridan, oh, actually, you are Sheridan Crane. Don't you know who you are? Like, I thought you looked familiar. Here's a picture of you, American princess. Like, if she really wanted to stir shit up, she would have just helped Sheridan remember that she was Sheridan. But I guess she wants to, like, stay as clean and clear as she possibly can. Which I guess I can understand. So, anyway, later on, Diana is talking to Brian about how excited she is to go to Harmony. And she's asking him, when are we going to leave? How long do you think the trip will take? Does it take like a few days, a couple of weeks? How long do you think? Very perfectly reasonable questions. He snaps at her. He's like, I don't know, Diana. Okay, relax, bro. I don't know, Diana. And she apologizes to him, because of course she does. She apologizes, because if it had been me, I'd have been like, you need to bring it on down. You are at a 10. I need you to be at about a 3 or a 4. I asked you perfectly reasonable questions, and you don't have any right to yell at me for that. Like, I'm just asking so I can prepare for this trip. When are we going to leave? That means that helps me know how long I have to pack, even though the bitch don't have shit to pack. Like, she doesn't have anything. I guess all her stuff is still in those stolen suitcases that Liz stole from all her guests who didn't pay. So she can just pick a suitcase and take it. She just grab a suitcase out the closet and go, and just whatever's in there. Everything magically fits Sheridan perfectly. So, but yeah, how long, when are we going to leave? So how long is it before we leave? Just so I can have an understanding and be prepared to leave. And then, how long does it take to get there? So I can prepare myself mentally for how long I'm going to be on a boat with just you in the middle of the ocean. But anyway, he yells at her. She apologizes, saying she wasn't trying to be pushy. She's just very excited to finally maybe find something out about her past. And then she says, you didn't want to do this, and I don't know why you didn't want to do this, but now I feel bad, because are you doing this because I want you to do it? Are you sailing the ship back because I want this? I don't want you to do anything that you don't want to do. Like, I don't want to force you to do something you don't want to do. And he says, no, excuse me. He says, no, it's not you. I need the money. I'm doing this basically for the money. So, he says something about he was worried about, because she had said that he was worried that she was going to freak out while they were on the boat, and that she wouldn't be able to handle a voyage at sea. And so she suggests that they do a practice sail and go out on the ocean tonight to just show him that she can handle being out in the water, and she won't have a panic attack. She'll be okay. So Brian agrees to this practice sail. She goes off to get sandwiches. They're always like, great, I'll go make some sandwiches. All they have to eat on this island are sandwiches. It's like, you think they'd have some great seafood. It's an island after all. Sandwiches, some fruit, it's a tropical island. You don't have mangoes, a nice fruit salad. No, sandwiches. I mean, I love a sandwich as much as the next person, but this is getting ridiculous. She always, great, I'll make some sandwiches. Great. Okay, girl, go make your sandwiches. So she goes to make her sandwiches. Brian then looks up the Harmony Herald website, and he's on their gallery of, I think it was people and places. And so the first picture is a picture of the wharf, and there's a picture of the town green or something. And then every subsequent picture is a picture of his family members. It's a picture of Theresa, and then a picture of Louise. I think that's all we got, but it's people and places, and there's 2 places and 2 people on the gallery. And the 2 people happen to be Lopez Fitzgerald's, which made me laugh. I guess they're the most popular people in town. But yeah, he's looking at this website. It's pictures of them. If I didn't know what I already know, this would be the moment when you figure out for sure that Brian, these episodes this week would give you the realization that Brian is Antonio. So it's no longer a spoiler that Brian is Luis's long lost brother, Antonio, Pilar's long lost child, Antonio. That was made very clear this week, and we'll get to it. We're almost there. So yeah, we see that he clearly has ties to Harmony. And then Sheridan comes back after having made her sandwiches, and she sees the picture of the wharf. She looks over his shoulder. He's looking at the computer. She looks over his shoulder, sees the picture of the wharf, and she's like, I knew it. That's Harmony. I know that place. I've been there before. And then she has a memory of her and Luis kissing on the wharf, because all of her memories are memories of her kissing Luis, with the exception of the one of her holding his lifeless body in the Crane vaults. All of her memories are memories of her and Luis kissing. But she has a memory of her and Luis kissing on the wharf. She's like, I've been to that place. I've seen that place. That's in my memories with the man that I love. I knew Harmony meant something to me. I just knew it. She's so excited. She's so thrilled that she finally has just a tiny little piece of the puzzle of her past. And Brian, I fucking hate this guy. I really don't like him, y'all. I really don't like him. Brian, of course, kills her joy entirely, murders it, stabs it to death like the psycho he is. And he says, just because you saw a picture doesn't mean that that's a real memory. You're making up memories in your head. Excuse me? You're making up memories. These little towns all look the same. All of those little New England towns all look the same. It might be that you were on a wharf in another town. It doesn't necessarily, just because you saw this wharf, it looks like a million other wharfs, basically. And he says, you just want to remember your past so bad that you are creating memories. Can y'all believe it? Can y'all believe? What kind of person says some shit like that to an amnesiac who's having legitimate memories and gaining little bits and pieces of their past? Like, Antonio/Brian, you know everything about yourself. You know your past. You have that privilege. She doesn't know anything. Why would you deny her of these little bits and pieces? Well, I know why. It's because you're selfish. You don't want her to gain her memories back, and you don't want her to ever leave the island. But that's disgusting. It's disgusting. So anyway, he tells her, you saw this picture and it forced you to create a memory that isn't real. How the fuck do you know that? You're not a doctor. Nope. Go, moving on. I had something real nasty to say, but I'm not gonna say it, I'm not gonna say it. Anyway, he says you have basically just created a memory that's not real, and because we're back to the old Sheridan of maybe you're right. So she's like, maybe you're right. Maybe I am just making up memories because I just want to remember my past so bad. So I'm just making up anything. No, baby, don't listen to him. Do not listen to him. And then she says, you know what? I probably shouldn't even sail to Harmony with you after all. It's probably a bad idea because it's just going to get my hopes up. And like you said, there's no way that I have any connection to Harmony just because the word itself strikes intense emotions within me, creates intense emotions in me, doesn't mean that it means anything. Yes, it does. Yes, it does, Sheridan. Stop listening to this jackass. So then she thinks again, and she goes, maybe I am forcing these memories, but I don't think I am. And I am sure that I have been on that wharf before. And yeah, maybe I will be let down when we go to Harmony, but maybe I won't. And I have to take that chance. This is the only chance I have. This is the only clue I have. Exactly. This is the only clue you have. You have to follow it. You have to. If it doesn't work out, then it didn't work out. But if it does, then you get your whole life back. If it doesn't work out, okay, we go back to the island. It is what it is. So anyway, they talk more about this practice sale. Brian has a memory talking about stars and following a special star home because his mama told him a story about a special star and you can always follow that star home. And I don't care. Meanwhile, again, this is the part of the episodes where they make it clear to anybody with two brain cells to rub together that Brian is Antonio, because while he's talking about my mama used to tell me this story about a star that I could always follow home, Pilar is in her kitchen lighting her candle for him, for her long lost son, and she's looking up at the star and saying, son, I hope you follow that star home someday. Please follow that star. I hope you remember that you can follow the star home. So, like, it's obvious at now, if you didn't already know, that Brian is Antonio. Okay. So, that's it for the Sheridan and Luis storyline. I mean, Luis, I could talk about Luis, but he doesn't do anything this week. He just pines about Sheridan and, wishes that Sheridan was still alive, and I think he talks to Chad and Miguel, a few different people, about how when he was on the island, he felt really close to Sheridan, thought that she was there. It's nothing really important, so we're going to move on. All right, now moving on to Theresa and Ethan. I can't even say Gwen. She wasn't in these episodes. We're getting no Gwen. Sorry to all my Gwen fans out there, but she is nowhere to be seen and has been nowhere to be seen for a while. She's MIA, that girl. I guess she's at work. Maybe she's at work doing her job. Good. Anyway, so let's talk about Theresa. She's pregnant. Eve explains to Theresa that she has to think about her unborn baby now. Like, all of her decisions don't just affect her, they affect her baby. And it's really important that she think for the two of them now. But the truth is, Theresa's brain, listen, y'all know I love Theresa. I love Theresa down. But she was having a hard enough time thinking for one. Now she's having to think for two. The girl can't do it. She can't think for two. She can barely think for one. So anyway, Theresa gets the bright idea, because now she's thinking for two, having to split that brain power up. She gets the bright idea that she can just pass the baby off as Ethan's. She can just pull an Ivy and just say the baby is his. And then Eve reminds Theresa that when Ivy did that, it destroyed so many lives. Well, she says it destroyed lives. I wouldn't say it destroyed lives. I would say it just changed lives. Destroyed is a big word, I think. But yeah, that Ivy's secret really damaged a lot of people in a lot of ways, especially Ethan. And it's like, do you want to do that to your own kid? So Theresa is like, yeah, okay, maybe you're right. Meanwhile, Ivy's listening outside the library door, trying to eavesdrop on whatever Theresa and Eve are talking about. She noisily bumps into the door with her wheelchair, and that's how Eve catches her. And so she makes Theresa be quiet. Zip it, girl. And she goes out, and Eve covers for Theresa because Ivy's like, why would Theresa be crying? What's she so worried about? I heard her say that she's worried that Ethan will leave her. What is she so upset about? Da da da. And Eve says, she covers for her, saying, oh, all you heard was she was concerned what Ethan will think of her for fainting. Because remember, the reason that Theresa and Eve are even in the library and Eve is like examining her is because Theresa had fainted in the living room when Julian had shot off his gun. So the story now is, oh, Theresa's just worried about what Ethan will think of her since she fainted. He'll think she's weak, and maybe he doesn't want to be with a weak woman. Or he'll think she's frail, some bullshit. Ivy doesn't buy it because it's bullshit. And she's like, I'm still gonna figure out what Theresa's very last secret is. Girl, this certainly is not her. It ain't her first, and it's certainly her last secret. But anyway, meanwhile in the living room, when Theresa comes back, because she knows she's pregnant, right? She has been told by Eve, the doctor, that there's no way it's Ethan's baby. It has to be Julian's baby. All because Theresa took one birth control pill the day that she had sex with Ethan. But then she had sex with Julian 2 days later, not on a birth control pill. And somehow the baby can't be Ethan's. But she had started her birth. I want to be clear with everybody. I know I've said this a lot. But she had started her birth control pill the day she slept with Ethan. So, of course, the baby can be Ethan's. And we do later find out, spoiler alert to everybody, that baby is absolutely Ethan's baby. It absolutely is. So, anyway, Eve explained, and because of course it's Ethan's baby. Of course it's Ethan's baby. She was... It was as much of a chance that it would be Ethan's baby as it is that it's Julian's baby. And the fact that Eve does not make that clear irritates me to no fucking end. Like, irritates me to no end. She's the villain. Eve is the real villain of this show. I've been saying it. And sometimes she's like very clearly a villain. And sometimes she's a villain by just being inept. Right? Like, sometimes she's a villain by giving out bad medical advice. But anyway, I digress. Let's move on. Theresa everybody goes back to the living room. It's time to sign the annulment papers. Before they sign them, Ethan says, Julian, I think you owe Theresa an apology. And Julian begrudgingly apologizes, and only under threat of death, because Luis is standing there glaring at him. Sam is there glaring at him. Ethan is there breathing down his neck like, apologize to my fiance. And so Julian gives a very Julian-esque type non-apology, like it's an apology but not an apology. It's like, I'm kind of sort of sorry, I guess, that we got drunk together. Like, it wasn't an apology. But anyway, then Ethan starts talking about if there was any intimacy, between the two of you, and if there was a baby involved, then the annulment would be a lot more complicated. But because there's not, this should be very simple and easy. This is just a formality. Theresa, I have to ask you, are you pregnant? And she doesn't say anything. She just stands there, mouth agape. She doesn't say anything. And then she starts to feel faint. Like, he asks her a couple of times. Everybody's just standing there. And again, this is one of those soap opera isms where I imagine we aren't meant to understand it in real time. We're meant to understand it in soap opera time. So it was not unusual that she was standing there for a full minute where everybody's just staring at her and she's just not answering this question. I imagine it was supposed to be 5 seconds, but it was a mess. Anyway, she then goes, oh, I feel faint. She starts to kind of faint. Eve says, I need to have a moment alone with Theresa. Can I please have a moment alone with Theresa? And to make sure that she, won't faint again. And so Eve takes Theresa to the side a little bit and explains to her that you have to tell Ethan the truth. Now's the time. You have to tell Ethan the truth. She says you can't keep the pregnancy a secret. It's all going to come out eventually. Eve says don't sign the annulment papers and take some time to think everything through. Theresa says, I have to do it. And she's like, what? I have to do this. And Eve says, okay, it's your life, honey. I think that's exactly what she says. It's your life. Here's the thing. It's so easy for us to watch it and be like, she should just tell the truth. She should just tell the truth. Imagine being in a room full of fucking people, most of whom you love you and you respect, and you have gone through this horrible experience where you have been somebody got you so drunk, incapacitated, married you, had sex with you, got you pregnant, you don't remember any of it, imagine the amount of shame that comes. I was thinking about, I actually put myself in this situation with like the people, in my life. And I thought, at 35, I don't know that I could announce to a room full of people that I was pregnant and in this way. I just don't think I could do it. I do not think I could do it. Now, do I think that Theresa, because remember, and another thing, remember, she just found out she's pregnant. Like, it's been 10 minutes ago. 10 minutes ago, she found out she was pregnant. 10 minutes ago, I found out I was pregnant. Yeah, and I murmured her, what do I do? What do I do? What can she do? So, yeah, she just found out she's pregnant. And now she has to announce it to a room full of people. The pregnancy might not even be viable, by the way, right? Like, when you're that early on in the pregnancy, you shouldn't be telling people. The only people who need to know is, like, the father. So, she shouldn't even be telling people she's pregnant at this point because it's so early in her pregnancy. It might not be viable, unfortunately. That's a horrible thing to happen, but it's possible. So, if it were me, I don't know. I actually, I do know. I wouldn't be able to tell him. I wouldn't be able to say anything. I would have signed those fucking annulment papers, moved on with my life for a little bit, taken some time to think things through, and told Ethan the truth or gotten it taken care of. But that's just me. That's just me. All right. So, child, I done went off on a tangent. I'm only like 2 notes into this storyline. So anyway, Theresa says, I have to sign the papers. So she goes back in. She and Julian both sign the papers. And then Ethan's like, Mother, everyone's going over to Pilar's house for a celebration party. A party? An annulment party? This is nothing to celebrate. What are we celebrating? But anyway, they throw in a party at Pilar's house to celebrate Theresa's annulment from Julian that happened because he got her drunk and took advantage of her. Party. So fun. Woo. So anyway, I mean, it sounded like a mess. It sounded like drama and mess. I would absolutely be in attendance. But yeah, not much of a party, I don't think. Anyway, he invites his mom. He's like, Mother, we're going over to Pilar's house to celebrate the annulment, and you are invited, but only on one condition, that you stop talking shit about Theresa. He doesn't say shit, but basically he says, that you stop saying disparaging things about Theresa. And Ivy refuses. She's like, that girl's a liar, and I just wish you would believe me. He's like, that's it, I'm leaving. And he storms off. And Sam looks at Ivy and warns her, you're going to lose Ethan if you don't stop doing this. If you don't accept his love for Theresa, you're going to lose him forever. Stop pushing him. Stop pushing him, Ivy. So she hears him, but she doesn't. We all know that Ivy and Theresa are the same person. They can hear the advice. They can hear where the advice is coming from, a good place and a good source, but they know better. Ivy always knows better. Theresa always knows better. They're the same. So over at the house, the gang gets together to celebrate. They're having champagne. And just as they're toasting, Eve comes through the door, and she goes, Theresa, you can't drink. I mean, she's incredulous, so loud. Theresa, you can't drink. But first of all, when Theresa was in Bermuda, she made it clear to Julian that she was underage. Like, am I meant to believe that she now is 21? What is happening with this storyline? Because when Eve explains, because she says, oh, Theresa, you can't drink, and she says, she doesn't say anything about the pregnancy, but what she does say is like, you fainted today. Your blood pressure, that happened because your blood pressure was low, and drinking won't help your situation at all. And then Ethan says, oh, that's fine. We can celebrate and have champagne at the Lobster Shack in a few days. Can she have champagne at the Lobster Shack in a few days? Is she 21 now? What happened Bermuda. And now that she now is the legal drinking age and nobody's making, because that was like a thing. She told him she wasn't legal. Whitney brought up that she wasn't legal to drink. Ethan brought up that it wasn't legal for her to drink when they were on Bermuda. So I don't, whatever. Now it's fine that she drinks champagne. It seemed like she would never want to touch the shit again. I certainly wouldn't. It seemed like she would never want to touch it again. But whatever. Anyway, then Whitney pulls Theresa to the side and tells her, like, you're so blessed. Now you can be with the person you love, and your love can go on unencumbered. Everything's going to be fine. Everything's now out in the open. And then Theresa runs away crying to her room. Everybody sees this, but Whitney's like, I'll go check on her. Nobody contemplates, why is Theresa crying, you know? But Whitney goes and checks on her, and Whitney asks her, Theresa, what's wrong? And Theresa tells her, Whitney, I'm pregnant, and I'm going to have Julian Crane's baby. And Whitney was devastated. She was like, Theresa, no. And honestly, again, putting myself back at age 18, 19, 20 years old, if I had gotten if I had gotten pregnant, devastation. But like, if one of my closest friends had gotten pregnant, and it was like with a guy that like we both knew was like horrible, and I would have absolutely been devastated for her. Absolutely, just like we definitely would have been crying together, because that's a lot. Oh my God, I can't even imagine. So Whitney's very upset. And she tries to console Theresa, but somebody need to console Whitney, to be honest. She was, Theresa, no. So Theresa then asks Whitney if she thinks, Theresa says, Whitney, tell me truthfully, do you think that I should tell Ethan the truth about this baby? And Whitney says, Theresa, you know I hate lies, but maybe this time is different. Maybe you really need to take your time and think out what the ramifications of this means, because if Ethan finds out, he will be devastated, and I think it really will be over between the two of you. Whitney, girl, this is not the best advice. It's not the best advice. Ethan has to be told. Somebody has to tell Ethan. Like, he has to be told. She's pregnant, and at this point they're making it clear that she's gonna keep the baby, I guess. So anyway, yeah. At this point, Ivy shows up to the house, and she, of course, is there to be mischievous, but y'all, she looked fabulous. She had on like this black fur coat. Like she came to bury Theresa. She came to bury Theresa. She looked fabulous. She was in a beautiful, like, glamorous, almost funeral type outfit, but like the outfit of like the first wife, which she is. The outfit of the first wife at the husband's funeral, but she's the one that got all the money. She looked great. But she showed up to bury Theresa. So she comes in pretending like she's there to mend fences and put everything, all the unpleasantness behind them. But that's not what she's there for. But Ethan's glad to see she's there to talk to Theresa and apologize and put everything behind them. And she says, where is Theresa? I want to speak to her, apologize to her personally. Eve like stops her from going to Theresa's room, and they have a little conversation where Eve tells Ivy, stop this, leave Theresa alone. You know as well as I do how horrible Julian is. The things that happened to Theresa in Bermuda are not her fault. Obviously not giving away that Theresa is pregnant, but the fact that Theresa was taken advantage of by Julian, you know how terrible he is. I know how terrible he is. They both agree, But Ivy's like, but no, that bitch is a liar. She's gonna hurt my son. I'm gonna make sure that doesn't happen. It's my job. So meanwhile, Pilar back at the mansion when everybody had gone and left. I don't know what Pilar was doing. I guess she was just like trying to get some air or something. But she goes to the library. She's in there just like talking to herself. Dear God, how could this have happened to my daughter? Julian Crane is a pig. Da 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 da. Then she sees a pregnancy test in the trash can. She looks at it. She realizes, holy shit, my daughter is pregnant with Julian Crane's baby. She goes home. She sneaks in the back way so nobody sees her coming in because she's very, very upset. She walks in on Theresa and Whitney's conversation. And so she overhears Theresa talking about the pregnancy. And she says, so it's true. You're pregnant with Julian Crane's baby. Again, Pilar's very, very, very upset. But she is very clear. She is very clear that Ethan must be told the truth because Pilar overheard Theresa talking about keeping it from Ethan. And Pilar says, I won't let you do this because the longer you lie, the more stressful it will be for you and your baby. That's bad for your unborn child. And you have to be thinking about that baby now, not just yourself. She says, Ethan must be told that you are pregnant with Julian's baby. And Pilar is serious about this time, y'all. She's very, very adamant. She was going to do it. She was going to do it for sure. So, but of course she doesn't. Of course she doesn't, y'all. We get to the end of the week and it doesn't happen. But the way it doesn't happen is infuriating. So, and it's but through no fault of Pilar's. So Pilar's upset. She tells Theresa that her actions have always had terrible consequences, but you never learn from your mistakes. And then she goes, where did I go wrong? How did I go wrong in your upbringing? She says, for once in your life, Theresa, listen to me. Listen to me. Theresa says, I'm sorry, Mama. I can't. Pilar says, well, the truth has to come out, and it has to come out now. And this is when Ivy interrupts the conversation. She didn't overhear anything, and everybody zips it up. Everybody becomes very, very tight-lipped. And Pilar leaves the room. Now, I want to talk about the fact that I don't love. I get where Pilar is coming from on one hand, where she's like, you keep lying and you're not learning from your mistakes. But the whole like, where did I go wrong in your upbringing? It's like you have enabled this behavior for years at this point. You are the reason. Like, I'm sorry. I know y'all love Pilar, and I like Pilar. I do. I get that she is in a tough position. I get that she's had a lot of, she's been dealt a bad hand. I do understand that. But I can't give Pilar too many passes because she has really enabled Theresa's lying for so long at this point. And she's lied for her a lot. And when you do that, that just teaches the person that it's okay to continue to lie, and you're going to keep lying for them. Why would Theresa think anything other than that? You haven't taught her anything other than that. So anyway, after Ivy has interrupted this conversation, Pilar and Ivy both leave the bedroom. I think Theresa and Whitney follow suit as well. Ivy is back in the living room, and she's back with Eve again, and they're arguing again. And Eve looks at Ethan and says, Ethan, as your mother's doctor, I think she might be pushing it a little bit too much. Maybe you should take her home. She needs to rest. She really needs to rest. Like pulling the doctor card to get rid of Ivy. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of liked it. But Ivy says, I'm not going anywhere. I feel fine. I feel great. Better than I felt in a long time, actually. But anyway, then Pilar sees Eve, and Eve and Pilar have a conversation like in the kitchen, I think. This is the moment when it would have been nice to have a co-host, because there are little details that I forget. But anyway, Pilar and Eve talk to each other. Pilar's very, 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 very upset upset, and Eve notices that Pilar is holding that pregnancy test, and she realizes that Pilar knows that Theresa is pregnant with Julian's baby, and she says, I'm so sorry, and she then says to Pilar, Theresa just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's just how Julian is. I fair enough. I think she was like, I'm sure he's ruined countless young women in his time. And Theresa just happens to be one of them, unfortunately, for her. Pilar then tells Eve, yeah, I have to tell Ethan the truth tonight. I have to tell him right now. So she goes out to the living room. Theresa is like panicking. She's in panic mode with Whitney, but she's helpless. There's nothing she can do, right? Eve does try to convince Pilar not to do it right this moment, but Pilar says, it's my duty to the unborn baby to put an end to all the lies and deception. So again, she goes out and she doesn't go out. She's like yelling. She's like in the kitchen yelling, and she's super, super upset. She's like, it's my duty to the unborn baby. Nobody hears that part. To put an end to all this deception. The part that people hear is that she's like, I have to do this. So of course everybody comes in and they're trying to figure out what the hell's going on. Louise, Ivy, Ethan, Chad, everybody's like, what the hell is going on? What's wrong, mama? And Eve says to everybody, oh, she's too upset to talk right now. She really needs to calm down. And she then takes her off to her bedroom. She takes Pilar to her bedroom, to sedate her, no less. She's like, she needs to calm down. I got just the right thing. Let me go get my doctor bag full of drugs. But anyway, she takes her off to sedate her, calm her down. And in the meantime, everybody starts to speculate what the hell's wrong with Pilar. Why could she be so upset? Ethan starts talking about how Pilar has been a rock my whole life. Even when things were going to hell at the mansion, she always remained steadfast. She was the only person in that mansion that I could always count on. No offense, mother. And Ivy goes, none taken. Because Ivy knows that the mansion life has been a mess. And then Pilar. Ivy starts to speculate that the only thing that could upset Pilar so badly, the only thing I could think is that it's something about one of her children. And so then they just run down the list of every single one of Pilar's kids. And Louis starts with himself. He's like, well, it's not me. I mean, I'm still upset about Sheridan's death, but I'm dealing with it. I'm okay. And as far as I know, Miguel's all right. And I just talked to Paloma the other day. So we get our first mention of Paloma. He's like, I just talked to Paloma the other day, and I'm pretty sure she's doing all right. And no one's heard from Antonio in years. And as far as I'm concerned, he's no longer a member of this family. They just threw that part in. How much Louise hates Antonio. And they don't even really bring up Theresa. Even though, like, Theresa's the one who's been through the most shit recently. I don't know. Louise is dealing with Sheridan's death, but he already talked about how it's not him. So, so they don't even really bring up Theresa, but that's what Ivy was trying to get everybody to kind of turn their suspicions onto Theresa about like what's bothering Pilar. But it doesn't really work. Then we get a conversation between Pilar and Eve, where Pilar is venting to Eve about all of the horrible things that have been working, all of the things that have happened in her life, and how things have never really worked out for her. And Eve says to her, well, Pilar, these things happen. Things have a way of working themselves out. And Pilar says, Ethan will probably leave Theresa for good but Ethan needs to know the truth, even if I have to tell him myself. Eve continues to try to stop her from doing this, saying this is something you're gonna regret later on. But Pilar tells her that actually I blame myself for this whole situation. Okay, Pilar, I'm listening. Go on. Yeah, she says she blames herself for the whole situation. that if she had never let Theresa work at the mansion in the first place, none of this would have happened. And I can't necessarily agree or disagree, but I remember when that whole mansion storyline was happening, where Pilar kept saying, "No, you can't work at the mansion," and Theresa did it anyway. How I felt like Pilar was not being the mother that she needed to be in that moment, and that the way she let Ivy kind of steamroll her into hiring Theresa, even though Pilar was adamant that, like, if she had just put her foot down with Ivy and said, my daughter's not working here, that's the end of the discussion. Like, she should have had the conversation with her friend instead of trying to tell her daughter. I mean, she tried to tell her daughter and it didn't necessarily work. Then you have to go to the employer, which is your best friend, right? And say, my daughter can't work here. I don't want to get into the specifics, but I'm not comfortable with it. And as my friend, you should have my back on this. But Ivy really steamrolled her on that. She really did. So anyway, Pilar blames herself, but Eve won't let her blame herself. She says, Eve says, Theresa is a stubborn, willful young woman. There's nothing you could have done to stop her when she had her eyes set on Ethan. This is not your fault, Pilar. I don't know if I fully agree. I don't think it's all Pilar's fault. Obviously, it's mostly Julian's fault. Partially, Theresa has a little bit to do with it, but Pilar had played her part. She absolutely played her part in this, and I don't think we should forget that she had a hand in the way Theresa has turned out. Okay, let's be clear. So then Pilar talks about how when Martin died, or not died, but disappeared, how she had to send her daughter Paloma away and it broke her heart. And then she talks about how she still prays that someday her son Antonio will come home, and she prays that someday, somehow, her family could be brought back together. And so I think that's just a little caveat to, first of all, they're introducing the idea of Paloma. And secondly, this is where we start to see the flashes of little Antonio through Pilar's eyes. So we're getting that kind of crossover between what's happening on the St. Lisa's Island and what's happening in Harmony. So anyway, meanwhile, Theresa has found a place of her own, like a spot where she can be by herself. And Ivy, of course, comes in and interrupts her and pokes at her. Is like, why could Pilar be so upset, Theresa? I think it must have something to do with you and one of your secrets. And she says, obviously, one of your secrets. She says, obviously, all of your secrets have come home to roost. But instead of landing on your shoulders where they belong, they've landed on Pilar's shoulders. But she can't take your lies and deceptions anymore. Doesn't it make you feel the least bit guilty to think of what you're doing to your own mother? And she says, you amaze me, Theresa. It amazes me that your lies don't seem to affect you. They just roll off your back. But the people closest to you, the people who love you, they're the ones who get hurt. I knew you still had a secret, and it's clear that your mother intends to tell Ethan, and that's good. Then I know that I can keep him away from you, right? And he'll know that I was right about you all along. I love Ivy. I love Ivy when she's being nice. I love Ivy when she's being mean. I love this. I don't know. She's a dynamic character. And she's not wrong. The thing about Ivy is she's correct in her assumption that Theresa is hiding something else, because she absolutely is. And it's obvious that she is. I don't even think that you have to be a very smart person to look at Theresa and realize she's hiding something, right? The way she's acting is extremely suspicious. So anyway, meanwhile, Luis goes to get Pilar to ask her to tell everybody what's bothering her. Everybody's speculating, what's wrong with you, mama? So you need to come and tell us what's going on once and for all. And Pilar goes back out to the living room and she says, I have something to say. And I feel very strongly that Ethan should know what it is that I have to say. And then Pilar, very tearfully, like she's crying a little bit, tells Ethan, Theresa loves you very much and she's made mistakes, but her love for you is very real and it's deep. But you don't know everything and you need to know everything. And she says, I'm so worried that what has happened will destroy her life. Pilar then says, I hate saying this, but the truth is, ... Ethan interrupts. What else is new? This woman is pouring out her soul. She clearly has something major to say. She's crying. Ethan interrupts and says, stop right there, Pilar. I already know what you're going to say. I know what's upsetting you. It's so obvious. You're going to say something about Julian and Theresa. Okay. Pilar thinks at this moment, because as any rational person would think, he must have figured it out, right? No, wrong, because this man cannot figure anything out. He couldn't figure out a 20-piece puzzle if you put it in front of him. He wouldn't be able to figure out, those puzzles that they have in like preschool classrooms that are literally just pictures of objects, shirts, like a shirt, a pair of pants, 5 pieces. He couldn't figure it out. He wouldn't be able to figure it out. Anyway, he can't figure this out, but he thinks he has it figured out. He says to Pilar that she's afraid of what happened to Theresa will destroy her life, and this secret is about Theresa trying to keep the marriage from him. Why would she be crying about that? They already got it annulled. The annulment has already happened. But that's what he thinks she's upset about. He's like, you're having a delayed reaction to Theresa and Julian being married. No, she is not having a delayed reaction, because the immediate reaction she had when she found out, which might I add, she found out before you, she beat the shit out of Julian. She is not having a delayed reaction to that. That's absurd. You had to pull her off of Julian in the middle of the hospital. So why would you think she is having a delayed reaction to finding out that Julian and Theresa got married? It was stupid. I rolled my eyes so fucking hard because I was disgusted, honestly. I was disgusted with the writing. Who wrote this bullshit? But you know what? Par for the course of Ethan. This is how he acts, and this is what he does. So, he says that she's just having a delayed reaction to Theresa getting married. It's all very dumb. And then he looks at her and says, you're worried that I won't want to marry Theresa anymore, but let me put your mind at ease. He turns to Theresa and tells her that he wants to spend his life with her. He wants to have children with her. He says she's his soulmate. And then he gets down on one knee and he proposes to her again. And he says that since the marriage has been annulled, they can put the whole thing behind them. And, what happened between you and Julian was a one-time mistake. I love you. I will never stop loving you. And you are my soulmate. And he proposes to her again. It is at this point that Eve looks at Pilar and whispers to her, Look at how much Ethan loves Theresa. If you tell Ethan that Theresa's pregnant with Julian's baby, it will kill him. And it will kill any chance that they have together. And she says, and the stress of breaking up with Ethan might harm Theresa's baby. And that, they've already established that everybody thinks that the unborn baby is like the most important thing here, that the health of the baby, which I get, the health of the baby, to me, it's not necessarily the most important thing, but it's definitely like something to think about, something to keep in mind. Stress can be harmful on a pregnancy, hard on a pregnancy. So, Pilar decides to keep her mouth shut. Pilar realizes that Eve is right. You're right. I can't tell the truth. She says that. I can't tell the truth. And she says, but the truth will come out. Theresa can't keep this from Ethan. Later, Theresa hugs Pilar and thanks her for not telling Ethan the truth. Just another example of Pilar holding Theresa down, but enabling her lying and the deception. I don't care how much you agonize over, I'm agonizing over this. I can't keep this secret from Ethan. I can't. Obviously, you can. You continue to do so. So I think you are okay with lying, actually, Pilar. It doesn't matter how much you agonize over it. The facts are the facts. You still aren't telling him the truth. So anyway, that's it for our fated couple. Okay, so now it is time to move into the magic storyline. So if you remember last week, Kay has turned herself into Charity. She looks like Charity on the outside, from her hair to the top of her head to the bottom of her toes, I guess. But she's very much Kay on the inside, right? So she is frantically trying to figure out how to change herself back into herself before Charity and Grace can find her and find out that she has turned herself into Charity, or that just notice that there are two Charities, right? So at one point, while Charity and Grace are like looking for Kay, I guess, so they kind of split up, or I don't know if they were looking for Kay, but they do just kind of split up. Kay is in the living room as Charity. Grace comes in, finds Kay, and is like, oh, Charity, about what we were talking about earlier, I just want to make sure you understand that I will have your back no matter what when it comes to you and Miguel. If Kay tries to go against you or tries to break you up in any way, I will have your back. And then, okay, fair enough. If my daughter does something wrong, I will have your back. Fine. But then she says this, which was so incredibly unnecessary. And remember, she thinks she's talking to Charity, but she's actually talking to Kay. She says to Kay, or to Charity, she says, I love you like a daughter, Charity. And honestly, I kind of sometimes wish that Kay was more like you. Gasp. The way I was like sick to my stomach hearing this, I was thinking, I was like, can you even imagine? Okay, I'm going to tell you a little story. When I was in actually elementary, middle school, high school, I had a friend who I grew up with, who I really, really loved. We were really good friends. But when we got into like middle school and high school especially, I found myself being more and more jealous of her because she was so beautiful. She was so smart, so talented, not necessarily more talented than I was, but she was definitely prettier than me. She was definitely, I don't know if I would say she was smarter, but she definitely got better grades than I did. And so like I started to feel this jealousy when it came to her, because when we would go, like people were always comparing the two of us to one another because we were together all the time, and people were kind of always comparing us. And like when we would go out, especially in like middle school and high school, when we would go to like the mall and like, like talk to boys or whatever, none of the boys ever wanted to talk to me, ever. They honestly acted like I didn't exist. They pretended like I was invisible. Nobody ever would like ask me my name or anything, but they fall all over themselves for my friend. Let's call her Jackie. That's not her real name, but let's call her Jackie. Fall all over themselves for Jackie and pretend like I wasn't there. And I started to like, that fucks with you. I started to like really grow some resentment around my friend Jackie, which to no fault of her own, she's great. She was great then. She is great now. I still really love her. But, and I've like grown out of that because I'm great now. Like I recognize now how beautiful I was then and still am now. It's just at the time, like I'm heavy, right? Like I've always been like a heavier girl. And at the time, like looking back on the pictures, I, through my 35-year-old lenses, can look at that girl and be like, wow, I absolutely was not fat. At the time though, all of my friends were like wearing size zeros too. and I was in a 13, like the largest of the junior sizes you could be, but I just had gotten my woman body before everybody else. So I like looked like a grown woman. Like I looked good, honestly. When I look at my those pictures from when I was like in 8th, ninth, 10th grade, I'm like I was fucking stacked. I looked great. I wish I could get that body back so bad. But that's neither here nor there. I said all of that to say I had some resentment around her, and if at that time I had overheard my mother saying to her, you know, I really wish LeTara could be more like you. I would never I would never let my mama forget it, and I would never forgive her for it. I think I would still have resentment about it to this day, and I wouldn't have resentment towards my friend Jackie. I would have resentment towards my mother, and I would have a real big issue with her. Like y'all, here's a little something about me. If I'm on the phone with my mom, if I'm on the phone with my mama and like we get off the phone and she doesn't say I love you to me, like I will tear up. Like I like I get like sad. I need my at least validation of love from like my parents when we talk. And I always say I love you. And if I ever get off the phone and I say I love you and she doesn't say I love you too, if she's just like, bye, because sometimes she does that because she's just like not listening to me. I get like a little, not a little, very hurt. So if I heard her telling somebody, I wish my daughter was more like you, y'all, I would still be bringing it up when I'm 85 years old and she's fully dead and gone. I would still be like cursing her name. So anyway, that's neither here nor there. All to say, Grace said some really fucked up shit, and I did not care for it. So yeah, she tells Kay, disguised as Charity, I wish that Kay could be more like you sometimes. Ugh, psych. That's just terrible. So anyway, Kay, of course, does not really take that well. She's very, very hurt. She doesn't let it show on her face. She kind of like smiles, does that like grimace. Okay, yeah, oh, fakes it till she makes it. Grace kind of fucks off somewhere. And that's when Kay renews that she doesn't give a fuck what anybody thinks. Cause like my mom already thinks I'm bad. I'm going to be real bad. I'll show her basically. And she says, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get Miguel. The consequences be damned. So outside, Tabitha and Timmy are like outside of the house. I don't remember how they got out there. Again, this would be a time when a co-host would be helpful. But I do remember. Kay at one point was like looking through the spell book, trying to find the right spell, like frantically trying to find the right spell to turn herself back into herself. And she heard Charity and Grace like looking around for her, and she went out on the porch and chucked the book off the front porch. So she just like threw it out into the front yard and then came back into the house, which was so stupid. Like, girl, why not take the book somewhere else? Like, nobody's at the Bennett home right now, right? Like, really, go over there and look through the book. Go somewhere where you can calmly look through the book to find the right spell to turn you back into yourself. But no, she throws the book, the key to her turning herself back. She throws it outside, and that's why Tabitha and Timmy go outside. They go outside to get the book. And so they go out there. Tabitha's looking for the right spell. She can't find one. And it is at this point that in the living room, Charity comes face to face with Charity. Charity v. Charity. And the real Charity they both just look at each other. They're frozen. In fear, really. They're both frozen in fear, obviously for different reasons. But the K Charity just stands there, waits for Charity to say something. And the regular Charity stands there and waits for the K to say something. And finally, real Charity just starts yelling and runs. She says, "Evil! Evil!" And she starts running. She runs to go get Miguel. And she says to Miguel, "I found evil. It's here. It's in the house." And she says, "Where is Kay?" Because Charity has been having suspicions about Kay for a while now. She keeps saying, I think the evil has something to do with Kay. I think the evil has something to do with Kay. And Kay always finds a way out of it, not necessarily by anything she's doing, it's just circumstances. The people around her, Miguel, her mom, her dad, are all like, I don't know. Kay's maybe not the nicest, but evil is kind of a stretch. To their credit, to Grace's credit, to Miguel's credit, they are correcting Charity in this moment. Typically when Charity brings up, oh, Kay is the evil, they're like, I've known Kay all her life, and while she can be difficult, evil is a very strong word. But in this moment, Charity's like, I saw evil in the house. Evil is here. Where is Kay? Now, she doesn't tell Miguel that she saw herself. She just says, I saw evil. I guess maybe she doesn't tell him because she'll sound crazy, but you already sound crazy, baby. You might as well give out all the details. We already think you're crazy. Just tell us what you saw. So after a while, she tells Miguel, we're all in danger. I saw evil. It's right here in the house. And Miguel finally goes, what are you talking about? What did you see? And she says, Miguel, we are all in danger. The evil, I saw it right here inside the house. Again, never tells him I saw somebody exactly like me downstairs or in the living room. At this point, because Charity and Miguel, I think, were in the kitchen. So Charity was bringing Miguel to come and see the evil. They get around the corner to go to the living room. Tabitha and Timmy are outside watching what's going in, and Tabitha's like, oh my goodness, what can we do? What can we do to help Kay? And Tabitha, it seems, has an exposed giant power switch to her house on the side of her house. She's like, oh, Eureka! And she goes over, she throws the switch, and it cuts all the power to her house. It cuts all the power to her house, and so it goes dark, completely dark. This gives Kay the opportunity to hide. She doesn't choose the best hiding spot. She just hides behind the couch instead of sneaking off to the attic or sneaking out of the house entirely. She just goes and cowers behind the couch. Whatever. We've already established that Kay is not a thinker, right? So the power goes out. Miguel and Charity are scared, oh my goodness, it is the evil. And then Miguel sees a shadowy figure moving through the living room, and I think we are meant to believe that it's Kay, but I actually could see absolutely who it was. I could tell who it was. And he tackles the figure, and it's Grace. Grace is like, oh my God, what's going on? And he's like, oh, Mrs. Bennett, I'm so sorry. Charity told me she saw evil in here. I thought maybe you were the evil. Y'all, it's so crazy. It's bad enough to do this podcast with another person and say all of these crazy things, but it feels so crazy to be saying these crazy ass things to no one. I mean, I know y'all are going to listen and everything, but oh my gosh. Charity says she saw the evil in the living room, so I tackled it. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm having a little moment. I'm a little loopy. Anyway, so after Miguel tackles Grace and we figure out that it's just Grace, Charity finally explains to them that she saw evil disguised as herself. And while she tells them that Kay is hiding behind the couch, it is at this point, because they start to kind of look around, feel around in the living room for the evil that Charity might have seen. And they're getting close to the couch. So for whatever reason, Tabitha turns the lights back on, I guess to distract them. She turns the lights back on. Grace makes a comment and says, must be storming outside. Girl, you can look out the window and see that it's not storming. I didn't know it was going to storm. It's not storming. What are you talking about? But anyway, Tabitha turns on the lights and they move away from the couch. Kay doesn't get caught. Tabitha was correct. And I guess she knows these people better than they know themselves, because she turned on the lights and they did exactly what I guess she thought they would do, which is move away from where Kay was, because they were distracted by the pretty lights. But once the lights come back on, uh, Tabitha then looks through the spell book to find a spell to try to help Kay. And she says some spell. I don't remember what it was. I don't particularly care what it was. All you need to know is that what happens is she says the spell, and then all of a sudden 2 new Charity imposters appear behind the couch, cowering with Kay. So she basically just made like mirror images of Kay as Charity. So she made the situation infinitely worse. And Kay, of course, is like sitting there like, what the fuck? She looks her right, she looks like her left, and she's like, what is going on? But she can't say anything. She can't make any noise because she'll get caught, right? So at this point, Charity and Miguel and Grace are all still in the living room. They with Kay, but they can't find her. They simply can't find her. She simply is too good at hide and seek. And so they can't just look behind the couch and see that she's there. And Charity is frantically trying to explain to them that she saw herself. And Miguel and Grace kind of look at her with pity in their eyes. They really do. The way they look at her was very like, oh, you poor thing. Oh, you poor thing. But well, she also says, and I think this might be why they were looking so pitifully at her, because she's she's frantic. She's losing it. She's like, there's evil in the house. I saw evil disguised as me. And also, I saw a vision of a baby that's going to be born, and it's going to hurt a lot of people. I know it sounds crazy, but the baby is going to hurt a lot of people. And they are looking at her like, oh, sweet summer child. What happened to you? Do you have blunt force trauma? Do you, like, what is it? But they're looking at her like she's kind of pitiful and pathetic. But Grace says, we know that you see and feel things that the rest of us don't see or feel. And so we're going to try and help you find the evil that you feel in the house. Because Charity Charity continues to just frantically say, the evil is coming, and if we don't stop it, it's going to destroy us all. So they decide they're going to help her find the evil in the house. And Miguel's like, yeah, we're going to find it. Don't you worry. And so then he goes and locks the front door, effectively locking Tabitha and Timmy out, and says, I'm going to go search the basement. So he goes to check. Well, he says we're going to check the whole house, starting with the basement. So he has to check the basement, but Charity and Grace stay in the living room. They don't go to do anything. They're just going to let the boy do it, the child. Grace, that's not towards Charity, that's more towards Grace. You're just going to let the child, somebody else's child, by the way, look for the evil in this house, but fine. So he has to go check the basement. At the same time, Tabitha manages to do a spell to like get rid of the Charity imposters, so that's out of the way. And then Grace says to Charity, you know what, Charity, how about you sit down? Let's have a seat. Take a rest. You need to calm down. And she starts to like motion her over to the couch, and Charity's like, I'm sorry, Aunt Grace. I'm sorry, Aunt Grace. There's something evil about the sofa. I don't know if it's on the sofa, around the sofa, behind the sofa, but something is evil about the sofa. I'm sorry, y'all. Something's evil about the sofa. I mean, she's not wrong. Kay's behind the sofa. But at no point do they go and look around the sofa. At no point. So Charity won't sit down on it. She says it's too evil. She's got an evil sofa. Oh, goodness. There's a joke in that somewhere, an IKEA joke. But I'm too tired to think of it. But anyway, she won't sit on the sofa, so they just stand in the middle of the living room, and Charity like shivers. Meanwhile, Kay manages to sneak out of the living room without being seen. Again, Grace and Charity are there, but Kay makes a run for it, and she gets out clean. And she goes up the stairs. Again, leave this house. Leave. But she goes upstairs and she finds a closet to hide in. Then Miguel comes back from trying to check the basement, tells them, I tried to check the basement, but it's locked. And so they decide to go upstairs and look upstairs for Kay. Miguel says, Kay's been gone for too long. I'm worried about her. Maybe the evil got her. Okay, sure. So they go upstairs, and this is when Sam comes into the house as well, and they bring him up to speed and say, we're looking for we're looking for evil, but we're also looking for Kay, and the two things might be one and the same. So he's like, okay, I'll help you look. And Kay is hiding in one of the bedroom closets. Charity finds her immediately. I mean, immediately. Kay goes into the closet. Charity comes in the room, opens the closet, and they stand face to face once again. And once again, Charity just stands there frozen. And instead of calling, if I'm Charity, I'm not leaving. I'm going to say, hey, everybody, come here, quick, come here, quick. I found the evil. It's staring me in the face. She does not do that because she's an idiot. She stands there and she doesn't say anything, and she starts to do movements. And so she and Kay start to Kay starts to mirror Charity's movements to try to make her feel I guess that she's just looking at a mirror. I mean, I don't know. Timmy at this point has climbed up to the second story, is watching everything through the window and reporting back to Tabitha what's going on, and he makes a comment about, you remember that old episode of I Love Lucy with Harpo Marx, which actually is one of my favorite episodes of I Love Lucy. And she was like, oh, yes, where they did the old mirror trick. And he was like, yeah, Kay's doing that right now. And Tabitha's like, oh, clever girl. It's like, is it clever? I guess. So she's doing they're doing the whole mirror thing. And then, at one point, Charity lifts her finger up, pointing it straight ahead. And Kay does the exact same thing, mirrors it, but she makes the fatal mistake of touching going tip to tip. Touching tips. I'm sorry. She makes the fatal mistake of touching the tip of Charity's finger, and at that point Charity gets a shock and screams and yells and runs away out of the room. Kay finds another hiding spot because she can't get out of the room because everybody's out in the hallway. I feel like she could have taken her chances with the window. I know it's the second story, but Tabitha's house has all kinds of shit to climb and stuff. She's all those. I mean, Timmy's up and down from there all the time, so I think she probably could have managed. I mean, she fell off that roof as a panther. I think she would have been okay. So anyway, she doesn't do that. She hides under the bed, which if somebody says if a child tells you there's a monster in my bedroom, what's the first place you're going to check? Maybe you check the closet first, but under the bed is second, right? You check the under the bed and you check the closet. Those are the only two places to really hide in a bedroom. But they do not check under the bed. Charity tells them, I found it. There's a mirror image of me in this room. It was doing all the same things that I was doing. So Charity, Sam, Grace, Miguel are all in this bedroom searching the bedroom. They're just kind of standing there looking around, never looking under the bed. Sam finally looks in the closet, and while all of this is going on, Charity is insistent. The evil, it's here. The evil is here. I saw an exact image of myself again. It's here. Sam then opens the closet and he says, I found her. And you're like, okay, what did you find, Police Chief Bennett? Guess what he found, y'all? A mirror. Of course he did. Of course he found a mirror. Of course he did. He says, here's what you saw, Charity. You must have thought you saw a mirror image of yourself because you saw yourself in this mirror in the closet. And Miguel says, yeah, that makes perfect sense, Charity. No, it does not. No, it does not, Miguel. No. Because first of all, and maybe because she didn't tell them all the details, it's easier for them to believe that it was just this mirror. But if she had just told them, no, that thing was like right up to me, it was the same size as me. The mirror that Sam saw or found was in the back of the closet. It just couldn't have been the same thing because she touched it. Like, anyway. But they're insistent. It was just the mirror. You just saw yourself in the mirror and you're overtired. Let me make you some tea, basically. Charity says, well, what about the one I saw downstairs? I saw an evil disguised as myself downstairs as well. And Grace says, well, honey, there's mirrors downstairs too. There's mirrors downstairs too. Charity, I love that now in the canon, the people in this room, Grace, Sam, Miguel, believe that Charity can't tell the difference between a mirror and a real person in front of her. Like she just discovered mirrors and she can't distinguish the difference between them. Like a baby, have you ever put a baby in front of a mirror and they're just like gobsmacked in awe of like, what the fuck is this? What is going on? It's one of my favorite things to do with babies is to sit them in front of a mirror and like see what they do when they're little, like between the ages of like 8 months and like a year and a half, like right in there. Cause by the time they're 2, they kind of figure it out. But yeah, I love to see babies in mirrors and the look of shock and awe on their faces. And they think that Charity is basically a toddler and doesn't know her own image in a mirror. Hilarious. Anyway, moving on. So at this point, they all leave. And Kay comes out of her hiding space. Again, they all leave. Miguel's like, let me make you some tea. You're tired. You need to lay down. Kay comes out of her hiding spot, and then all of a sudden she starts just retching in pain. She's just like, oh my God, oh, and she's like in horrible pain. And then her body starts to just spin around, and we realize that the spell is just wearing off on its own. So I wonder what the time limit is on these spells, but the spell is just wearing off on its own. That's a freebie for Kay. Again, it's fate. It's fate. The universe wants Kay to get away with it, obviously. So she spins back into herself, and then she sneaks out into the hallway before anybody can like see her come out of that bedroom. And when she sees everybody, she's like, "Oh, what's going on, everybody? I've just been up in the attic. Why is everybody looking for me?" Because they were like, "Okay, there you are. We were worried about you." And she's like, "Why were you looking for me? Worried about me?" And they were like, "Well, Charity sensed evil in the house and she thought maybe it had something to do with you, or maybe the evil had gotten you." And she says, "No, I was just up in the attic looking at some of Tabitha's old things." I can't remember exactly what it was she said she was looking for, but she was like, "Yeah, I was just looking through Tabitha's stuff upstairs, some of the antiques upstairs. So sorry, Charity, your feelings, your senses are off this time." And so she gets away with it. But Charity says, before everybody kind of goes their separate ways, Charity says she still senses the evil in the house. And she looks at Kay and says, I think it had something to do with you, Kay. And Kay's like, "Nope, you're wrong." I love this girl. Kay, not Charity. All right, so moving on. This is the last little bit of this. Later on, everyone is over at the Bennett construction site. This house is built. Okay, y'all, we're seeing the inside of the house. And as suspected, I think we talked about it on one of the watch parties, it's the exact same layout. They have rebuilt the exact same house. It is the same layout. It's not decorated. There's no furniture. There. What's happening right now is that they're painting the walls. So we'll see. It remains to be seen if it's going to be basically the same set. But right now it's the same. It's definitely the same layout. So they're all over there painting. The kids, the parents, everybody. TC, Hank, everybody's over there painting. And Tabitha shows up because you know how Tabitha is. She wants to be in the mix. She needs to know what's going on at all times. So she shows up under the guise of like she's coming to help. Well, she comes in, she grabs some paint, she finds a wall where nobody can see her, and she starts painting hexes on the walls, which I assume she was going to like paint over so nobody would see. But yeah, she paints these hexes on the walls. And of course, Reese catches her painting the hexes and is like, I knew it. Witch, what are you doing? She's like, these are just mere doodles. These are just mere drawings. And so he pulls her. He's like, yeah, right. I'm gonna show everybody, prove to everybody you really are a witch and you can't get out of it this time. And he pulls her away so that she can't paint over the hexes that she's drawn. But Timmy's still there, and Timmy helps his princess out. He paints over it, much like my fucking landlord, my fucking super did in my apartment, and they never came to fix it. If y'all were wondering why I have this giant white patch and my paintings are gone, I had a bunch of mold in my house, in my apartment. I found a bunch of mold. They came, they scraped it, they cleaned it, and then they just painted this wall like this and never came back to fix it. So I'm like up my super's ass about that. Off track, off subject, but this is a good visual because when Reese comes back, this is what the wall looks like. It's just like a white patch because Timmy has painted over it. And so everybody comes over to see the hexes. There's nothing to see as always. And he accuses Timmy of having done it, and Tabitha's like, he's a doll, idiot. He's like, well, why does he have paint on his hands? And Tabitha's like, because I must have gotten it on him. You know, I put him too close to the paint well, and I must have gotten paint all over him. It happens. And you know, nothing comes of this, but it was just a little fun little thing that they did, like they always do. Then Kay, while she's painting, she notices that Charity and Miguel are like getting close, and Jessica makes or getting closer because they're already very close. Jessica makes like a comment about, wow, look at Charity and Miguel. Seems like they get closer every day. And Kay's like, I'll be damned if I'm going to let her get any closer to Miguel. So she fucks off to Tabitha's attic to find that book of spells. She finds it again, and she looks through it to try and find she's like, there's got to be a spell in here that's going to help me break them up. There's got to be a spell in here that's going to help me break them up. And she gets to the end of the book and there's no more spells. She's like, oh no, that's it. There's no more spells. And then a spell starts to just magically write itself in the book. And it says this, quote, a spell to break up a happy couple. Love is patient, love is kind. Erase love from their minds. A happy couple they will not be, their hearts all filled with misery. Okay, not their worst. The worst one I think I've heard is spin to the left, spin to the right, spin me into the one that Miguel loves. But this one I kind of liked. Love is patient, love is kind. Ah, yeah. My words erase love from their minds. A happy couple they will not be. Their hearts will all be filled with misery. And then a puff of smoke starts to come out of this book, and this book is just emitting all of this smoke, and this smoke makes its way outside, and the outdoors gets like super foggy. So we're doing like fog again, magic fog. I do love the magic fog myself. I know it's controversial. Some people don't like it, but I love everything that has happened when we did like the fog storyline. It cracked me up, and I mean, nothing really came of any of it, but nothing ever comes of any of this bullshit. So Especially the magic stuff. Hardly anything ever comes of this. Like, it never really moves the story. That's not true. That's not true. I'm not being fair to the magic storyline. I just feel like we get a lot of like a lot more nonsense in the magic storyline that doesn't push the story forward than we do of things that do push the story forward, nonsense that does push the story forward. So, it remains to be seen if this is nonsense that does push the story forward or not. We're doing fog. It's foggy outside. This is when we need to talk about troubled marriages. The troubled marriages. Let's talk quickly about Grace and Sam. It's very easy because they didn't show up till the very last episode of this week, which I was grateful for. I thought, when I got to like episode 4, I was like, oh wow, a week without Sam and Grace and David. I'm okay with this. I don't miss them one bit. Then they showed up, but it wasn't for long, so I was okay. So like I said before, everybody's over at the Bennett home painting the walls, and TC and Hank look at Sam and they're like, hey Sam, what the fuck is David doing here? Like, what's he doing here? Why is he here painting your house? And Sam is like, I don't know, don't ask me. Like, I think Grace thinks it's okay for him to be here because he wants to help, whatever. And then Grace kind of pulls Sam to the side and they're like having a nice little, painting, lovey-dovey kind of thing. And Grace brings up the fact that Charity had a premonition about Sam and Ivy kissing. And Sam assures her that that's never going to happen. I'm never going to, I hope you know that premonition is wrong. It's never going to happen. I'm never going to kiss Ivy ever again, basically. And it is at this point that Sam catches David like listening in on their conversation, and he accuses them of eavesdropping. Like, why are you spying on me and my wife while we're talking? And David's like, I wasn't spying. I just happened to overhear you talking. That's spying, buddy. It is spying. Let's be clear. You're in their house trying to break up their marriage. You've been very clear that you're trying to break up their marriage. If you're listening to their conversations, you're spying. It's that you're an op. You're an op. So, and for all of you who don't know what ops are, opposition. You're the opposition. So you are, if in your mere presence here is spying. Period. But anyway, Sam catches him. Why are you spying on me and my wife while we're trying to have a marital conversation? This is an A and B conversation, so see your way out. And Grace kind of sends Sam away. She's like, let me talk to him. You go calm down, because Sam's getting kind of agitated. So Grace says to David, but before Sam leaves, Sam says to Grace, okay, you can talk to him, but make sure you put that bum in his place. You put that bum in his place. So David then says to Grace, after Sam leaves, you should really listen to Charity's premonitions, because when we were together, you used to have them, and almost all of them came true. Almost all of them were true. And Grace says, well, this one is not true, and I'm not going to put any credence into it, and I don't believe it. It's not true. It's not going to happen. And then she says, by the way, when are you leaving? She's like, when the fuck are you leaving, by the way? I don't know why she won't just put him out at this point. If it were me at this point, and I've decided on Sam, I'm not getting anything from David. He hasn't told me anything about my past. He's not telling me anything about my past. I came up with a plan for him to be able to tell me about my past. I was like, you can just write everything down in these notebooks and send them to me. Yeah. Why are you still here? Why are you still here? And if I were her, it's like, I wouldn't even just be asking, why are you still here? I would be saying, it's time for you to go, David. I don't want you here anymore. Please leave. But she is not saying that. She is not saying that. And I don't know if it's because she deep down doesn't want him to leave, or if it's just that she's just too nice to tell him to leave. I think it's probably a mix of both. I really do. Because I do think she wants him to leave. I do think she's a little too nice to say, hey, get the fuck out, leave my family alone. But I also think Grace is, I know Grace is still very curious about her past and wants to know about her past, and he's allegedly the link to her past, right? So I think I would imagine it would be hard for her to just tell him to leave, especially if it meant never learning about her past from him. You know, if you put your foot down with somebody, oftentimes they don't take it so well, right? So I don't know if he would be journaling for her and sending her those journals in the mail if she's like, hey, get the fuck out of my house and never come back. I never want to see you again. So, you know, she does ask him, why are you still here? When are you leaving? And David says to her, like I told you before, Grace, I'm only going to leave once I'm absolutely sure that you are happy. And she looks at him and says, well, see, look at my smile. I'm happy. You can go now. She says you can leave anytime. Good for you, Grace. I love when Grace gets a little sassy. They don't give her enough because, like, Ivy gets everything, you know? And Grace, when they give her those little bits of sassiness, those little sprinkles of seasoning, Dana delivers it perfectly. She could do so much more if she was given the chance. She really could, because she was like, you can leave anytime. Yes, girl. Tell him. So anyway, that is basically it for Sam and Grace, but we have one other troubled marriage to talk about. And it is Julian and Rebecca, because after the whole annulment situation, Julian has signed the annulment papers. He's a free man. He gloats to his attorney Harper that I'm a free man. I'm a free agent. I can do whatever I want. He calls himself the master of the universe. Okay. I'm the master of the universe. I don't have any woman holding me down, tying me down. I could have any woman I want. Can you? But okay. Of course, Rebecca overhears him saying all this bullshit, comes in and is like, oh, the hell you do. The hell you do. You are going to marry me. Because he says, I don't have to do anything that I don't want to do, including marry Rebecca. And that's when Rebecca comes in and is like, the hell you don't. Excuse me? And Julian tries to sweet talk her. He's like, oh, but Rebecca, I didn't mean what I was saying, but you should understand, I've been married for so many years. You won't deny me the chance to, like, sow my wild oats and be free for a while. Of course I want to marry you, just not now. Right. And, Rebecca, of course, renews her blackmailing of Julian. And she's like, Pookie, it sure would be a shame. I wonder how Luis would feel if he found out that the explosion that caused Sheridan's murder was caused by you, that you are the reason Sheridan is dead, that you killed your very own sister, that you killed the woman that he loved so much, not to mention tried to kill him too. And he says, she says, you have so many enemies in this town, they would have to throw a lottery to decide who would flip the switch when you got the chair. And she said, and hopefully I would win. Girl, Rebecca is something else. I love this. I like love and hate the character. You know what I mean? Like, I typically don't root for Rebecca. I don't, because I don't like her. I think she's nasty. She's racist. But boy, does she play it well. God, I mean, it just, when she said the thing about the lottery, you have so many enemies in this town that they would have to throw a lottery to find out who gets to flip the switch on you in the chair. Who gets to turn the electricity on when you get the electric chair? And that I hope I win the lottery. The very woman who is saying to you, I want to marry you, is also saying to you, I won't hesitate to fucking kill you. Come on now. Rebecca is a G. For all her faults, Rebecca is an absolute G, and sometimes I really love it. You know what? I don't love it when she's punching down on like Pilar and Theresa, but when it comes to Julian, when it comes to Ivy, yes, give it to me, girl. Give it to all of them. Okay, please read them down. Tell them what the fuck is up. Even though I love when Ivy and Rebecca go toe to toe, because they both have those like very sharp, quick wits, and of course Ivy always wins out, which is why I love those arguments between them, because I always know that Ivy's going to win out in the end, but the journey to the end is phenomenal. The journey, fantastic. So anyway, she told him, I'll flip the switch. I will tell everybody everything if you don't marry me, and I will fight to be the one that gets to execute you if you don't marry me. So then Julian says to her, "Oh, you misunderstood me, Becky. You misunderstood. I live for the moment that I get to be your lawful husband and you will be my lawful wife. I just thought we should take a little bit of time. But I definitely want to marry you, Bex. Don't worry about, no reason to worry about." She's like, "Oh, I thought not." And she leaves. When she leaves, Julian is so pissed. He's like, "I never should have told that bitch that I was going to kill Sheridan." Like, no, you shouldn't have. He was like, "That was the dumbest thing I've ever done." Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if it's the dumbest thing he's ever done, because I'm sure he's done a ton of very dumb things, but it's up there. It's got to be top 5 for sure, because why would you tell anybody? Why would you tell anybody that you were doing that? Why? It doesn't make any sense. But yeah, he's regretting now that he told Rebecca about his scheme to kill Sheridan, and that he went through with it. And so he tells Harper that he's gonna drag his feet for as long as possible, drag out their engagement for as long as he possibly can. He was like, "I'll marry her eventually. Eventually." And that's when Rebecca comes back with a bouquet of flowers, a justice of the peace, and their marriage license. And she's like, "Okay, Pookie, we're getting married right now. And they do their I do's, they snap a picture, and they are married." It was that quick. It was it gave new meaning to a quickie wedding, right? Like, it happened 20 seconds, it was over. So that is the end of everything for today. Woo! Got through it. I hope you enjoyed it, even though I'm by myself. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I had fun doing it. I had to take several breaks. So again, it took me hours to do this. So again, I'll probably be by myself again next week, until hopefully my side gets better. But the week after, I already have somebody lined up. But with that, remember, you can catch me on all the social media. Just check the link in the description. Go join the Patreon. And send me an email. Give me a rating. It's been a while since I got any ratings on the show on Apple Music, or not Apple Music, Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you can rate it. Please give me a 5-star rating, or a 4-star rating give me a 5-star rating if you made it this far to the end of the episode. Rate it. Also, can y'all please, if you're not already subscribed to the YouTube channel, can you please subscribe to the YouTube channel? Because I'm trying to monetize it, but I don't have enough subscribers to monetize. So that would be very, very helpful. That's it. With that, you are my passion for life.